Story number 1. Survey call. I was working on a logo redesign for a coffee shop when my phone rang Tuesday afternoon. The number looked local, Portland area code, and I almost let it go to voicemail, but I'd been waiting on a call from a print vendor. I picked up. The man on the other end was polite, professional. He said he was calling from Pacific Northwest Insurance, that they were conducting a routine security survey for homeowners in my area. I'd had my policy with them for 3 years, so it didn't seem strange. He even rattled off my policy number to confirm he had the right person. I said, "Yes, that's me." He asked if now was a good time. I glanced at my screen, at the half-finished logo that wasn't due until Friday. I said, "Sure." The questions started normal enough. Did I have a security system installed? I told him no. I'd been meaning to look into it, but hadn't gotten around to it yet. Did I have any exterior cameras? No. Did I keep my doors locked during the day? Usually, I said, though sometimes I forgot when I was just home working. I kept designing while we talked, adjusting the curve of a coffee steam illustration. He asked about my daily routine, what time I usually started work, whether I left the house much during the week. I told him I was a freelance graphic designer, worked from home most days, sometimes met clients for lunch or coffee. He made a small sound like he was taking notes. Then he asked if I lived alone. I hesitated on that one. It felt like the kind of question you're not supposed to answer honestly, even on a legitimate call. But he'd already verified my policy number, and it was a security survey after all. They'd need to know household size for coverage purposes, right? I said yes, just me. He asked what time I typically went to bed, whether I kept my phone nearby at night, if I'd ever felt unsafe in my neighborhood. I stopped moving my mouse. Those questions felt different, more personal. I said I usually went to bed around 11, that yes, I kept my phone on my nightstand, and that no, I'd always felt perfectly safe here. The duplex was in a quiet area, lots of families, a retired couple next door who were friendly. There was a pause on the line, just a second or two. Then he said, I must be very comfortable working from home, that I sounded relaxed. I made some non-committal sound, already thinking about how to wrap up the call. I had work to do. That's when he said, "That's a nice blue mug you're drinking from." My hand froze on the mouse. I looked at the mug sitting on my desk. It was blue ceramic, handmade, something I'd bought at a craft fair 2 years ago. I'd made tea maybe 20 minutes before the call. I didn't say anything. He continued in the same pleasant survey taker voice. "Is that tea or coffee? I can never tell from here." I turned slowly in my chair and looked at my office. It was a converted second bedroom, small, with one window that faced the backyard, the window behind my desk. The blinds were open because I liked the natural light, even on overcast days like this. From the street, from the front of the house, you couldn't see into this room at all, only from the back. My backyard was fenced, just a small square of grass and a couple of overgrown shrubs I kept meaning to trim. Nobody should be back there. "That grey sweater looks comfortable too," he said. "Do you always work with your back to the window like that?" I was wearing a grey sweater, an old, oversized cardigan I'd thrown on that morning because the house was cold. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up. There was a faint static hiss on the line, rhythmic, like someone breathing through fabric. "Hello," he said, polite, patient. "Are you still there?" I hung up. For a few seconds I just sat there, phone still in my hand, staring at the window behind me. The yard looked empty. Grey sky, wet grass, the fence, nothing moving. Then I stood up fast enough that my chair rolled backward and hit the wall. I went to the window and yanked the blinds closed. Then I went through the whole house, every window, closing every blind and curtain. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the cords. I locked the front door, the back door, checked them twice. Then I stood in my living room trying to decide what to do. Calling 911 felt like an overreaction. He hadn't threatened me. He'd just described things he could see. That wasn't illegal, was it? But my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I called the non-emergency police line. The dispatcher was calm and asked me to explain what happened. I told her about the call, about the mug and the sweater, about how he could only see those things from my backyard. She said she'd send an officer to check the property. He arrived maybe 15 minutes later. I watched through the front window as he pulled up, a young guy, probably early 30s, who introduced himself as Officer Reyes. I told him everything again, feeling stupid now in the retelling. He didn't make me feel stupid, though. He just nodded and asked if he could walk around the outside of the house. I waited inside, pacing between the kitchen and living room. It felt like he was gone a long time, but it was probably only 5 minutes. When he knocked on the front door, his expression had changed, more serious. "Mom, I need you to stay inside and keep your doors locked tonight," he said. "I found something in your backyard." He showed me a photo on his phone. Cigarette butts, 6 or 7 of them, lying in the wet grass directly beneath my office window. They were clustered together like someone had been standing in that exact spot for a while. "I touched one," he said. "It was still warm. I felt cold all over." He said he was going to file a report, that I should document everything about the call, save the number if it was still in my phone. He recommended I get cameras installed as soon as possible, that I should call 911 immediately if I saw anyone on my property or if the caller contacted me again. After he left, I checked the number. It showed up as unknown. I didn't sleep in my bedroom that night. I stayed on the couch in the living room with all the lights on and a kitchen knife on the coffee table. Every small sound made me freeze. The house settling, the heater clicking on, a car passing outside. I kept thinking about how long he must have been standing there, watching me work, watching me get up to make tea, watching me sit back down, long enough to smoke 6 cigarettes, long enough to learn my routine. The police never found him. The cigarette butts didn't have DNA they could use. The phone number was a burner. I got cameras installed 2 days later, front and back. I moved my desk away from the window, but sometimes, even now, I feel it. That specific feeling of being watched. And I wonder if he's still out there somewhere, just waiting, still learning. Story number 2, Pump Attendant. I pulled off Highway 41 around 9:30 that night, fog thick enough that my headlights just made it worse. The gas station materialized out of the grey like something from another decade. Single island, 2 pumps, a squat building with yellow light bleeding through streaked windows, no other cars. I'd been driving since 6 that morning, hitting 3 clinics across southern Indiana, and my tank was nearly empty. The signs on the pumps clearly said self-service. I remember noticing that specifically because as soon as I stopped, a man came out of the building and walked straight toward my window. Gaunt, maybe 50, wearing a stained jacket despite the humid August air. I rolled the window down halfway. "Evening," he said. His voice was soft, almost gentle. "Let me get that for you." "It's self-service," I said, not rudely, just stating fact. I know. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "But I'm here anyway. Might as well help out. Long drive?" I hesitated. The whole interaction felt slightly off, but I couldn't pinpoint why. Maybe he was angling for a tip. Maybe he was just bored. It was a Tuesday night in the middle of nowhere. "Sure," I said. "Fill it up. Regular. You got it." He nodded slowly. "Head on inside and pay. I'll take care of this." I turned off the engine and grabbed my wallet, leaving my phone in the cup holder. The fog seemed to press against the car windows. As I walked toward the building, I glanced back once. He was already unscrewing my gas cap, moving with a strange deliberateness, like he was performing a ritual he'd done 1,000 times. Inside, the smell hit me immediately. Diesel fuel and stale cigarette smoke, so strong my eyes watered. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, one of them flickering in a slow, irregular pattern. Behind the counter sat a woman, maybe 60, reading a tabloid magazine. She didn't look up. "Pump 2, I said. She nodded and rang it up without speaking. $43. I handed her my credit card, and while she processed it, I looked out the window at my car. The attendant wasn't at the pump anymore. He was on the passenger side, moving slowly around the front of my vehicle, peering into the windows with his hands cupped around his face to block the glare. His breath probably fogged the glass. "He's thorough," the woman said, her first words. I looked at her, but she was back to reading her magazine. The receipt printer whined. She tore off the slip and slid it across the counter with my card. I took both and walked back outside, the fog immediately dampening my face and shirt. The attendant was back at the pump, replacing the nozzle. He turned as I approached, that same flat smile. "All set," he said. "Check your oil while I was at it." Looked a little low. I hadn't asked him to check anything. I nodded and moved toward the driver's door, keys already in my hand. That's when I noticed the passenger door wasn't fully closed. Just an inch gap, barely visible, but definitely open. My glove box was hanging down. I stopped, staring through the windshield at it. The registration papers inside were disturbed, pushed to one side. I always kept them neat, flat, because I got pulled over for speeding once in Ohio, and the trooper had commented on how organized I was. Stupid detail to remember, but it stuck. Something wrong? The attendant was closer now, maybe 3 feet behind me. I hadn't heard him move. "No," I said quickly. "Thanks for the help." I opened my door and slid in, immediately hitting the lock button. All 4 locks chunked down. Through the passenger window I could see him standing there, hands in his jacket pockets. As I reached over to close the glove box, I saw him shift slightly, and something in his right pocket caught the light. A phone. He was slipping it deeper into the pocket, the movement casual but deliberate. I looked down at my registration card. It was angled wrong. The corner that had been tucked under my insurance card was now on top, and the card itself was rotated, maybe 30 degrees from how I'd left it. Someone had moved it, picked it up, put it back. My hands were shaking as I started the engine. In the rearview mirror, the attendant hadn't moved. He just stood there in the fog watching me, his expression completely blank. Not angry, not concerned, just watching. I put the car in drive and pulled out faster than I should have, tires crunching on gravel. The gas station disappeared into the fog behind me within seconds, and I kept checking the mirror, half expecting to see headlights following. Nothing. Just grey. My heart was hammering. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was checking if I'd left the door unlocked, trying to be helpful. Maybe he opened it to check something and the glove box fell open. Maybe I was remembering the registration card wrong, but I wasn't. I knew I wasn't. 20 minutes later, I pulled into a brightly lit truck stop outside of Bloomington. There were people there, families, truckers, normal life. I parked under the lights and called the state police non-emergency line. Gave them the station location, my plate number, description of the attendant. The dispatcher was polite but non-committal. Said they'd send a unit to check it out. Asked if anything was stolen. I said no. She said to call back if I noticed anything missing. I sat there for another 10 minutes checking my car. Nothing gone. Wallet, phone, laptop bag in the trunk, everything accounted for. I felt stupid, paranoid. 41 years old and spooked by a weird gas station attendant in the fog. I drove home, slept poorly, went back to work. 3 days later, Friday afternoon, I was reviewing my credit card statement online before a meeting. There were 3 declined charges, all from gas stations, one in Evansville, one in Vincennes, one in Terre Haute. I hadn't been to any of those towns that week, but I was supposed to. My work calendar, the printed route sheet I kept clipped to my visor, had all 3 listed for Thursday. I'd rescheduled those visits Wednesday morning because a clinic in Bloomington had a last-minute opening. The charges were all attempted within 6 hours of each other, Thursday morning through early afternoon. All declined because I'd called my credit card company Tuesday night from the truck stop and had them flag my account for suspicious activity. Someone had my card number, and they knew where I was going to be. I pulled up my work calendar on my laptop. It had been in my glove box. I always kept a printed copy there in case my phone died. It listed every stop, every town, every clinic address for the entire month. My registration had my home address. I sat there in my car outside the clinic, engine off, staring at the declined charges on my phone screen, the attendant's blank face in the fog, his hand slipping the phone into his pocket, the glove box hanging open. He'd photographed everything, and if my card hadn't been flagged, if I'd stuck to my original schedule, he would have known exactly where to find me. I reported it to the police, gave them everything. They said they'd investigate. I never heard back. I don't stop at rural gas stations anymore, and I keep my glove box locked. Story number 3, maintenance request. I woke up late on Sunday morning, still getting used to the sounds of the building. I had only been in the apartment for 3 weeks. The place was small but safe, or at least that's what I kept telling myself. 3rd floor, decent neighborhood, secure entrance downstairs. I was making coffee when my phone buzzed with a text from the building manager. Maintenance needs to inspect bathroom pipes in your unit. Urgent leak issue from 4th floor. Worker will arrive within the hour. Sorry for short notice. I looked at the message for a moment, then shrugged. It made sense. The woman 2 doors down had mentioned something about plumbing work last week. I texted back that it was fine and went to get dressed. 50 minutes later, there was a knock. I checked the peephole and saw a man in grey coveralls standing in the hallway, no toolbox in his hands, no bag. I hesitated, then told myself he probably left his tools by the door or was just checking the situation first. I opened it. Bathroom inspection, he said. His voice was flat, polite. He was maybe 40, average height, clean-shaven. The coveralls were generic, no company name stitched on them, no badge clipped to his chest. "Yeah, the manager texted me," I said, stepping aside. He walked in without waiting for me to finish speaking. He moved past the kitchen and turned left down the short hallway toward the bathroom, like he already knew the layout. I hadn't told him where it was. But then again, all the units on this floor probably had the same floor plan. That made sense. I closed the door and stayed in the living room listening. He didn't ask me anything, didn't explain what he was looking for. I heard the bathroom door close most of the way, not all the way, just enough that I couldn't see inside from where I stood. Then I heard his footsteps, heavy, slow, pacing back and forth across the tile. 4 steps, one direction, pause, 4 steps back, over and over. It sounded methodical, like he was measuring something. But there was no sound of tools, no clink of metal, no running water, no cabinet doors opening, just footsteps. I stood there holding my coffee mug, trying to make sense of it. Maybe he was checking for soft spots in the floor. Maybe he was looking at the ceiling for water damage. I didn't know how plumbing inspections worked. I'm a teacher, not a contractor. I told myself I was being paranoid. The footsteps stopped. Complete silence. I waited. 10 seconds. 20. I could hear my own breathing. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. But nothing from the bathroom. I set the mug down on the coffee table and took a few steps toward the hallway. Still nothing. No movement. No sound. The door was still partially open, but I couldn't see him from this angle. "Everything okay in there?" I called out. A pause. Then his voice came back calm and even. "Yeah, just looking. That was all he said. I stood there, and something in my chest tightened. The silence stretched out again, and I realized I didn't like not being able to see what he was doing. I didn't like that he hadn't brought tools. I didn't like that he hadn't explained anything. Then the door opened fully, and he stepped out. "I'm going to need you to leave for a bit," he said. He wasn't looking at me directly. His eyes drifted somewhere past my shoulder. "Tenants make me nervous. It's easier if I work alone. Maybe go get a coffee. 20 minutes. I blinked. "I already have coffee. Just step out. I'll be done quick." Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. Not aggressive, not threatening, just insistent, like he'd already decided I would do it. "I'd rather stay," I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. He shifted his weight, glanced toward the door, then back at me. It's standard procedure, liability thing. Can I see your ID? I asked. He didn't answer right away. His hand moved to his pocket, then stopped. Left it in the truck. What company are you with? Another pause. Building contracts it out. Your manager has the details. I took a step back toward the coffee table where my phone was sitting. Let me just call him real quick to confirm. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture did. He straightened slightly, looked toward the door again. No need. I'll come back later. It's fine, I'll come back later, he repeated, and he was already moving toward the door. He didn't wait for me to respond. He pulled it open, stepped into the hallway, and walked toward the stairwell. Not the elevator. The stairs. I stood there, frozen, listening to his footsteps echo down the stairwell, heavy and quick. The door to the stairs banged shut, and the sound reverberated up through the building. I grabbed my phone and called the building manager. It rang 4 times before he picked up. Hey, sorry to bother you on a Sunday, but the maintenance guy just left and... What maintenance guy? My stomach dropped. You texted me. You said someone was coming to inspect the bathroom pipes. I didn't send any text. I pulled the phone away from my ear and checked my messages. The text was still there, from his number. I put the phone back to my ear. It came from your number. It says, urgent leak issue from the 4th floor. I didn't send that. And there's no leak. Hold on. I heard him typing on his end, muttering something under his breath. My hands were shaking now. I walked to the bathroom and looked inside. Nothing was out of place. Nothing was moved. The cabinets were closed. The shower curtain was exactly where I'd left it. He hadn't touched anything, or if he had, he'd put it back. The manager came back on the line. I'm checking the security logs now. What did he look like? I described him. Grey coveralls, no tools, no badge. Jesus, the manager said. Okay, stay in your apartment, lock the door. I'm pulling up the footage. I locked the door and sat on the couch staring at the bathroom doorway. My mind was racing, trying to rationalize it. Maybe it was a miscommunication. Maybe he had the wrong unit. Maybe the manager forgot he scheduled it. The manager called me back 12 minutes later. He used a master key, he said. His voice was tight. Came in through the basement entrance at 9:42 this morning. I recognized the key. It's one that was reported stolen 3 weeks ago. Guy who used to work for the contracted maintenance company got fired and didn't return all his keys. We changed most of the locks, but the basement entrance was still on the list. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Police are on their way, he continued. I'm coming up to your floor now. Don't open the door for anyone but me or the cops. I sat there after he hung up, staring at the bathroom, thinking about the pacing, the silence, the way he'd asked me to leave, the way he'd known exactly where the bathroom was. I still don't know what he was doing in there.